Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the discussion and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by 10th Man, Neil, Refracted Curvature, Eli, Brian's Logic, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Yeah, how's it going?
Hey, good afternoon.
Good to be here.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to have you all. I hate to follow off straight after the pre-show with a discussion that doesn't involve the audience knowing what's being discussed, but hopefully you're going to pick this up as it goes along, and it's not just some in-joke, so it's worth it, audience. I know you've only just joined us live. Just after the end of the pre-show, John, just want to clarify something you said. I asked earlier if you had been given the opportunity to play a 25-minute video in yesterday's debate, and now I'm under the impression that you did want to play a video, but you weren't allowed to. Is that correct? Or precluded from doing so, shall we say?
Well, initially it was meant to be that we were allotted times, and Ruhif chose to fill his with the video, which is fine. I wasn't complaining about that. But when it come time for me to speak, I got like 2 sentences in, and I think cognitively they broke, and they wouldn't allow me to speak anymore. So it didn't matter what I did after that. As far as showing pictures, I had to resort to taking my camera out and turning my camera phone on to be able to show them that, you need straight lines for angles. I think it wasn't as much that they knew what they were doing. It was just like a reaction to something that they didn't like. You know what I mean?
I do, but to answer my question, did you ask if you could play the Rob Durham 1-minute video?
No, because they wouldn't put up the celestial sphere model on screen. I didn't even bother pointing out that, there's a video that demonstrates this. Like, at that point, they weren't interested.
Okay, when you say demonstrates this, what is this?
Well, that you can't get an angle when one of the lines is curved, that you need 2 straight lines to get an angle. And when you're talking about elevation angles, Earth can't be a sphere to get an elevation angle.
Perfect. So that's my cue to play Rob Durham's video, which I'm going to do now, if I can get it to look reasonable. I can't, because it's on shorts. I'll come back to this momentarily with a slightly different version of that video. Okay, so for the audience's benefit, just to get you up to speed before I do that, John went on McToon's channel to debate the nature of Earth. In essence, we're talking flat Earth versus globe Earth. Now, there was lots of rules and regulations in terms of establishing a fix for some reason, and once that was done, admirably so, by the flat earther known as Ruhif, with flat Earth elevation angles, it was pointed out to him that he had used flat Earth elevation angles, and that's the sentence that John had in lieu of a 25-minute comparative presentation to compare to the pre-recorded video that he had to sit through, made by Ruhif, followed by a summary by Ruhif verbally. So that's the situation. You need elevation angle measurements taken from a flat plane. Ruhif followed the process admirably, acquired the elevation angle measurements from a flat plane, but didn't like having it pointed out that he was in fact the flat earther that had done this. Is there anything else in summary to add to that, John? Or is that it?
Well, as far as his understanding of what dip angle is, he was asserting that he was drawing a straight line to a geometric tangent point. And then he said that line can also be curved.
Sorry, tangents are a straight line, though.
Correct.
So does Ruhiv not understand what a tangent is?
I don't think Ruhiv understands what geometry is. I don't think he could pass like 6th grade geometry if he had to.
But my question was, does he know what a tangent is? Because it seems like he's saying a tangent can be bent. Is he an idiot?
Yes, that's the only explanation. I don't think he's a liar. I think he's just moronic.
That's a compliment.
They didn't have any hesitation calling you a liar about the degrees you studied hard and earned. They mocked you at the end. It got really ridiculous. I finally went off. I just rewound the video at 5 minutes, 30 seconds.
Hold on, before you start confusing me with stuff. No, just let me play this section of Rob Durham. Possible?
Okay, to briefly touch on what the guys over at Flat Earth Debate have been saying, we're going to use the exact same examples of the GP positions here. I'm going to look at it from an orthographic view. Okay, if we're standing here on the Earth, this is the angle to the celestial body. Let's take a line from our position, representing the horizon. The angle formed here is definitely not 90 degrees. And even at the position where it meets the Earth, you can't have a 90-degree angle to a curved surface. And AutoCAD will actually verify this, because if I choose the angular dimension command, pick this line and this line, it will give me an angle between them. If I try to pick this line and this arc, it says here, object selected is not a line. It will just not give me an angle. And why would it? How could it? The angle will be different at every single point on that arc.
Sorry to snap your 10th. Right, what was it you wanted me to do?
Nothing.
That's when you drop the mic.
No, I wanted to say that I rewound the video from the show, the recording that John was on with McToon and Ruhiv. And the video started playing at 5 minutes, 30 seconds into the show that Ruhiv pre-recorded rather than do it live, which was okay. And it ended at 27 minutes, 24 seconds. Subtract the two. So for 21 minutes or so, it was just a video. And then they offered John after that, which then they rumpused him from the beginning.
Okay, sounds very neutral.
Neutral platform.
Very neutral, very neutral. Is there anything we need to summarise? Because I'm sure that's probably what the regulars wanted us to do immediately at the start of this live show, just discuss the events of that discussion. Because it wasn't a debate.
Well, I'd like to summarize.
Go
on. They used a recording of me on your show even. Here's 10th Man saying, and then they played a clip of me saying that The Practical Navigator by Bowditch is like the Bible of navigation. Every sailor has one. And they commended me for it. And they actually used me saying that, and that I bought 4 different copies at different dates just to see if any changes were made or additions. Okay, because I like to do full research from newer copies versus the older copies. Then he took an excerpt out of it, not the one I was showing on your show. Now, the reason I want to draw attention to that is because I've said from the beginning, and this will answer the question of John saying, I don't think they're liars, I think they're confused. In celestial navigation books, whether it's Bowditch or all the others, they pre-assume a globe. So everything has to work off of that curved surface. So there's a lot of nonsense in there. But at the same time, they can't help but put some good stuff in there. And when I started looking at them initially, I saw all the good stuff with begging the question globe inserted. And I said, well, how in the world does an angle work off a curved surface? So when someone says, 10th Man recommends Bowditch, I recommend In what sense? I said this is their main source, and in here is full of contradictions. Let me show you a few. They didn't play the contradiction that I showed on your show. They just went to an excerpt they wanted to pick up from the book that validated the globe, which of course all of them do. They all are globe books. They draw circles on their attention plane, make that circle the globe, etc., etc. But it's the nuances that you look for. Like, for example, where are the angles being measured from? In the tables. Not the guy with the sextant on the surface. In the tables, the angles are measured from the center of a circle. Now, what is so precious about the center of a circle? Is there a curve there? Can anyone answer me this? Is there a curve at the center of a circle?
No.
No.
No, but there is an origin for a vertex of two lines to meet. Nathan, go to Master B. I've got it up there. I don't know if you see the first one, which is a written portion.
Yep. Off you go.
Okay. Altitude. The true horizon is a plane tangent to the Earth's surface at the observer's position. The visible horizon is the horizon line seen by the observer's eye. The celestial horizon is a plane through the center of the Earth, center of the celestial sphere, it extends to it. Parallel to the observer's true horizon, extended to meet the celestial sphere as a primary great circle of reference. The altitude of a body projected onto the celestial sphere is a vertical angular distance in degrees of its center above the celestial horizon. As the observer cannot make this measurement from the center of the Earth, celestial sphere, nor see his imaginary celestial horizon, the altitude is taken by a sextant using his visible horizon as a reference and transferred to the center of a celestial sphere and the celestial horizon by suitable corrections. Go to the first image following this. So you're at the top of this circle and your observer eye is above the sea surface. And they call that
Hold on, which image?
The one following the writing.
There wasn't any following the text. That's the last image.
Really? Well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 images. Nothing?
Posted it twice. Let me just see if I can zip through to the... Is it the blue earth?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
what you want to be on now.
Yeah, correct. So you see 3 parallel lines. Okay, where's all the tables tabulating elevation angles that the books, you got to match with the books? At the center of the circle, which they reify into a globe. We have to match everything to that. What is that? Do you see a curve there? No, you see 2 lines and the circle's sectioned off into 490s. Okay, so this is why you got a minus from 90. It's pretty obvious. If you look at the right side of the circle and say the sun is rising at the highest point, it's over your zenith, and then as it goes down, it's setting. And so now you see how they're having to minus from 90, because the highest point ever of a luminary will be 90 above you, same zenith. The geoidal horizon is a tangent point touching a circle. So that's where the eye comes down from the dip correction and gets on the water. The sensible horizon is a theoretical horizon at the eye level of the observer with the sextant on the boat before he makes dip correction. So if you were on land, that could be achieved by theodolite or a bubble sextant or something else, theodolite with a plumb bob, leveling device as well. You can have a horizontal at your eye level and it's perpendicular. But when you're in the sea and you got to use the horizon, the earth, you have to make dip correction, get your eyeball on the water. And then see, they got this thing now all the way matching where the tables derive from, the center of the earth. Next slide. On this one, you see what's happening. they got the Earth, and you've got the celestial sphere around the Earth and all the stars stuck to it on the inner concave portion of it. And they match everything, parallel and longitude and latitude lines match everything. Okay, and you can see the celestial equators matching the Earth's equator and the ships on top. Then you look to the left and you say, what's that? Well, that's the altitude azimuth horizontal coordinate system there on the left. That's how we do things. But that is their center. That is the center of the Earth right there for them. And that's where the measurement has to come from. So really, it's a flat plane that we're always doing it on, because what's the center of the Earth? There's no curve there. There's a 90, and it's the equatorial plane. Next slide. So in all actuality, here's the center of the Earth. Zenith angle. And then now draw an arc, and they put you on the surface. They project you on the surface of the arc of the protractor. But you've got to match everything to this center table. Everything has to be done. That's why you go through the calculations. Next slide. So you can see here in this imagery, you've got a circle representing a sphere, and the true angle is from the center, but the observer needs that tangent plane on top in order to match it. Guys, your tables in the book have to match that center. You're on a curved surface, it can't, so you're forced to draw a parallel line to a flat, to make a flat so you can get an angle, and then transpose it. That's all that's happening here. That's it.
I have something to say in a second.
Okay, seconds up. Go.
Yeah, I'm going to say, John says that Ruhif is not a liar. Now, I'm going to point out that how he is a liar and how he is dishonest. Ruhif said, these are some of Ruhif's quotes, that I can't remember exactly how he phrased this one, but he said, the celestial sphere model is a globe. That's basically what he said. Not exactly how he phrased it, but he said it the same thing. Said that same thing several different times in about 4 different ways, something like that. But he also claimed that an elevation angle doesn't need 2 lines, right? And he also claimed that an elevation angle doesn't eventually become a right angle triangle, which it does. And then he shows 2 angles, one from the surface of his sphere, but he has he's using a tangent plane, but he has it in a serrated yellow line. This tangent plane he made, right? And then he's showing that same exact angle, which involves 2 lines, and he brings it down to the center of his globe, which involves 2 lines. I think it was Divergent Droid and me were both saying in the comments. He's saying that, like, the right angle triangles aren't used, and he's saying the elevation angles only have 1 line, and then he's showing 2 elevation angles with 2 lines each. He's an absolute total and utter liar, and so is McNeil.
So he's on to summarise, on the one hand he's saying you don't need 2 straight lines to form an angle, then he takes an elevation angle that in reality was taken from the surface with a flat baseline, and then transposes that angle, which he said you don't need and wouldn't be 2 straight lines, down to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, which is actually the centre of the celestial sphere model, but represents the same 2 straight lines with an angle at the centre. In other words, he's saying he doesn't need an angle. Angles aren't 2 straight lines. Here's my use of an angle from the surface, acquired from a flat baseline, transposed down to the centre as an angle, 2 straight lines. Wow.
It's just like the container story.
Hold on.
He actually said that he didn't need 2 lines. He didn't even say straight. You didn't need 2 lines for an elevation angle.
I think you have like a very high estimation of Ruhif's intelligence, and you're ascribing malice to ignorance. But so he should take that as a compliment, though.
It's not ignorance, John. It's not ignorance, John, when you're showing the complete opposite from what you're claiming. And you're trying to hide your tangent plane with a little off-yellow serrated line, just like Mick West did with his Metabunk. I'm sorry, I have to completely disagree with you.
I'm with Brian.
No, that's just stupidity. Like, they think there's a justification for it. They don't know what it is. They just have to argue with me. They don't have to figure this out. I have to be wrong because they know the Earth's a sphere. It's just.
I'll agree with John. I think
John.
John's more right than you, Brian. As much as you can read deception into them cognitively drawing out the baseline, because they've heard our argument, so at a surface level they must have processed it to a certain degree. But what John's described is more accurate. Well, we can't be wrong. I mean, I'll put a wiggly line here just in case, so they don't focus on it. But that's about the length of their malice. As opposed to your description of them going, this is where they lose the argument, therefore I've got to put this wiggly line in so that they don't focus on it, because if they do, I lose the argument, so I've got to lie here. I don't think there's any malice or forethought in the... Yeah, they've got a cursory consideration to it, but as John says, ultimately they know they're right. They're on a globe and they know, and everyone knows around them, so they can rest on their laurels, confident in their dogged assurance that they're on a globe, until that cognitive pain and the put to the back of their mind because, I'll draw a wiggly line, gets pointed out to them. Now, when John points out to them, well, yeah, he's done an admirable job of getting flat Earth elevation angle measurements. They cognitively couldn't bear it and had to interrupt him. So they've just suppressed it as opposed to used it knowingly with malice.
Hang on.
I agree. Hold on. I agree with you also, John and Nathan, specifically because when I also think about how they have casual conversations when none of us are around, like, I mean, people in general, like when this is not, when they're not debating us and they're just speaking casually, like they definitely aren't, they're not lying then. Like they really believe it. Like, so I think that what's going on is exactly how John and Nathan described it. It's more accurate to that.
Good point, Eli. I never looked at it like that.
Except Brian,
hold on, before you throw a
before
third point in, just let Brian just address it, because it is him with
Oh my
disagreeing
gosh, I
with
was
it.
waiting. Eli came in my position.
I know, well, Eli's just rude, but Brian
I
can
go
address
first.
what we've said. Go ahead, Brian, and then 10th.
I did not do that.
You're just rude.
I
Just
just
accept
interrupted
it.
Nathan twice.
Well, I'm going to be
before you
rude
said
now
anything.
to all of you by shouting out Douglas Kirkwood for joining as a penguin, and also Godzilla for essentially wasting his free member chat by saying, "Hooray, free member chat!" that's why he boasted with his free chat that he gets each month for being a member. So thank you, Godzilla, for the super chat, and thank you very much, Douglas, for joining as a member. Brian, please feel free to respond, as we disagreed with you specifically, John and I.
Yeah, Ruhif intentionally used a serrated yellow line as his tangent plane to take the focus away from him having to use the tangent plane. So that I can't call that ignorance.
No, but did you hear what Eli said?
He made some statements that were completely the opposite from what he went on had to show. Ruhif, I've dealt with him over the years. He's not stupid.
Hold on. What you've just described isn't deceit. It's cognitive dissonance. You realise that, right? You've just assessed him and given a description of cognitive dissonance as opposed to a description of deceit.
Well, I have to take into account that he used a serrated yellow line. To use a serrated yellow line in place of what should have been one straight white or red line or whatever tells me that he had to actually think about that.
But he also told you that you
given
didn't
thought.
need... Did he not also tell you that you didn't need two lines? Correct? That is what he stated, according to you guys. I haven't watched, but I'll take you at your
He
word.
did say you don't need. He said you didn't need. An elevation angle doesn't need two lines.
Okay, and then he used them with a wiggly line. So that is actually, as opposed to what you're describing as deceit, that's his massage. The wiggle is the massage for his cognitive dissonance, I would argue.
Listen, you can see it any way you like. I'm going to stick with he's a liar. He's dishonest.
Okay.
That's how I'm going to stick with
Who
him.
is it that said don't ascribe to malice that could be easier described as stupidity?
Yeah, but I agree with what Eli said.
Hamlin's razor. It's Hamlin's razor, right?
Yeah. And that's true in some circumstances, but with Ruhif, I don't think so.
Eli, they're ignoring you.
Can I say something?
No.
No, 10th can. You can next.
My goodness. And by the way, Eli, when I spoke on my end, you came in after me, but I don't know the delay. It may have been the other way. So that's how I took it.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Tenth. Go ahead, Arwin.
Okay, thanks, Nathan.
Right. Hello. Hi.
I was just joking, by the way, Arwin. Arwin, that was a joke. You're just not keeping up. Go ahead, Tenth.
Oh.
All right. Well, let's get objective instead of subjective. I just showed you pictures that are drawn everywhere in celestial navigation, that everything's got to match that right angle from the center of the Earth where there's no curve. So if he doesn't draw a tangent plane on top, how could he do that? He has to. We just saw it. Now, the word elevation angle or altitude measurement, if you look at the definition of that word, and Nathan, I'll use the one you have, the altitude angle, sometimes referred to as the solar elevation angle, describes how high the sun appears in the sky. The angle is measured between an imaginary line between the observer and the sun and the horizontal plane the observer is standing on. Okay, they see that. They know what an elevation angle is. And they say, no, you don't need two straight lines or a baseline for an elevation angle. You can just do it in the air. You don't need to use the Earth. It does. See, I can get a horizontal in my eye line. It's the theoretical horizon. I can do it with a plumb bob, a bubble sextant. Yeah, but with the Mariner sextant, we're using the horizon. So how do you adjust for that to match the description of an elevation angle? And this is where they're lying, because they could read the definition. They could see the parallel lines. This is where Brian is right. Unless you're telling me McToon and Ruif don't know how to read the definition. Then
definitions are meaningless.
No, but
Yeah, that was
has
the
to be a
quote.
sphere.
Hold on, we'll start off with John, but Arwin's got to. He's in the queue. Let's hear that quote
Right.
again, and then I'm going to shout out Goldie. Go ahead, John.
Definitions are meaningless, Tenth.
Shout out to Goldie McKinnon for joining us, Penguin. Go ahead, Arwin.
Right. So I think I wanted to basically try to divine whether they are lying or not lying. How is that working for them? I think that the anti-flat earthers have assimilated a compartmentalized ability for themselves where they can basically lie and then immediately hide for themselves that they lied.
That's cognitive
That's what
dissonance.
I think
It's
they can do.
not
and
lying.
I think they use it all the time now, which makes them
You're doing
seem
it too now.
extremely-
It's frustrating.
I'm
You
not
just
done yet.
because you're doing what Brian's doing. It's cognitive dissonance. If you're holding two positions simultaneously, that's cognitive dissonance, not deceit.
Yeah, thanks. I was trying to explain that.
My bad.
Never mind.
Sorry, Arwin. My bad.
Hey. Yeah, fair. So we do have a counterexample of this from the globe side toward us, which is Danny Faulkner, where he writes in his blogs that flat earthers are generally liars because they promulgate information that has errors. So he's basically saying if you have erroneous information, you're necessarily dishonest, liar, deceitful, all these negative moral characteristics, which isn't correct. That's fallacious reasoning.
The stereotyping fallacy.
Look, my main point was really...
Go on, Arwin. Sorry.
Shouldn't be, we're not the liars. You guys are the liars.
I'm going to bring this back home in a minute.
Projection, really. But my main point is that they do shine through continually, but in very short moments, in snippets. Like you can even see it in their eyes, where they do realize that they are lying, but then they just very quickly forget about it. It's like they industrialize the cognitive dissonance. But it's not the natural cognitive dissonance, you see. A natural cognitive dissonance, you can't snap out of it and you won't lie. Because that, if you will consciously lie, it can't technically be cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is a natural process where you just can't snap out of it because you truly believe in something even though you can't cognitively figure it out.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
These guys are different. They weaponize
that is
it
cognitive
and they
dissonance,
lie
though.
and then forget quickly.
Yeah, but that is cognitive dissonance. You're admirably describing what cognitive dissonance is. Now, you can call it lying to yourself. When you verbalise it, you could call it lying to others. It isn't. Because they haven't intentionally decided to deceive you with malice. They genuinely believe when they state that you don't need two straight lines or two lines to make an angle, and then move on to a completely contradictory point where they use two lines. That is cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, but that part is cognitive dissonance. But I'm just trying. Hold on. I was just trying to say they do actually know they're lying at times, and typically cognitive dissonant people don't. They don't see it. They consciously know it and then forget about it quickly. It's different. It's not the natural cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, but you're just saying that they're lying.
But
unless you can demonstrate malice.
Wait, can it before?
Go on, Eli.
This is the problem. This is why epistemology is important, because AI addressed it properly, and it's what John and Nathan have been trying to highlight as well. Because when we consider them doing it, we understand they're illogically coming to those conclusions. But when it's them, we're happy to say, it's deception. No, it's cognitive dissonance.
But I disagree, because cognitive dissonance has an element of innocence to it, and they do not.
It's a straightforward conflict, internal conflict. Whereas Nathan's something where you end up having to lie to yourself. So you will ignore certain specific facts that don't sit with your worldview. Even though you know them, and you focus and put much more emphasis on, say for example, you bought a pair of shoes from the shop, right? You went down the street, and at the next shop, exactly the same pair of shoes, half the price. But what you do is you tell yourself, no, but I trust that other shop where I bought them from, so I'm happy to pay more because I'm actually getting a better product because they've got a better returns policy. So you make things up to justify past the most obvious glaring contradiction in your worldview, that the shoes were bloody cheaper, you idiot. Yeah, that's dissonance, where you just argue amongst yourself. You just convince yourself. You may verbalize that to others, but importantly, it's an internal process.
Right. But that's still, you're still thinking you're doing the right thing, right?
No.
Yeah.
Well, these guys, my point is that these anti-flat earthers, they literally are consciously lying to us. They're trying to deceive us. They're trying to strategize against us in a consciously deceptive way. And they, on top of that, also cognitive dissonance themselves.
Oh God, this is driving me nuts. As evidenced by
how they literally consciously don't answer questions when they could, just to basically throw everything off, to derail us, to sabotage. They systematically do it.
We could get into a discussion about this, about whether or not they're embracing cognitive dissonance or just outright double-faced liars. We could carry on this discussion indefinitely. However, I think that is actually beneficial to them, because they are but one man, but two men. It wasn't a fair debate by the sounds of things, but two men, as much as that doesn't make sense. Let's just individualise it. MC Toon is but one man. Ruhif is but one man. And they can throw themselves on the flames in this regard, because it doesn't matter when it comes to the overriding Western worldview that the world is a spherical surface and the elevation angle measurements don't lead to lines because our line's curved or something like that. They don't mind contradicting themselves because there's plenty more to replace them, right? But in their own way, they're just putting an argument for a globe and receiving one back that defies it. And we, personally, I think, if you'll all agree, I hope, should just focus on the argument that they lost or won on. Now, if they won, then that's wonderful. We'd obviously be hanging our heads in shame like we did with the Isle of Man when we were begging the question. But in this regard, you go, okay, what's the win, what's the loss? They presented an eloquent demonstration of acquiring flat Earth elevation angle measurements to acquire a fix, if I'm not mistaken in what I heard. And then they were commended for their use of a flat Earth to acquire elevation angle measurements to acquire a fix. And it was conceded that he'd done a pretty good job within 11K or something similar from what I heard. Excellent job of using a flat Earth there, Ruhif. But apparently when that was pointed out that they had used a flat Earth to do it, they didn't like it. Well, now I've summarised that in one breath they didn't like it, so I've dropped it in there for you guys to keep you happy. But ultimately, they proved a flat Earth when they took an elevation angle measurement from the flat baseline that we dwell atop.
What actually happened is, within the whole thing, is McToon and Ruhif hijacked John's challenge. John's challenge was that he would concede to everything they want him to concede to, and his whole defense is only going to be the celestial sphere model, basically. And that may not be verbatim, John, so John can correct me in a minute. But they took that challenge and hijacked it and turned it into a completely different challenge. Ruhif took up John's challenge after other people failed to take it up. And other people argued with John about the challenge. So John had that challenge out there for weeks and weeks and weeks without anyone taking him up on it. Ruhif took him up on it and then changed the challenge around completely, and then claimed that when John went to speak, when Ruhif's presentation was over, presentation video, that he was in violation of the challenge. John never stated publicly that he was ever going to get involved in the challenge that MC2 was claiming was happening. John was the originator of
sorry to interrupt you. Am I right in my understanding that what was twisted from the neutral, fair moderators platform being used to host this discussion, the discussion was actually twisted from John's offer to concede whatever they like and point out that they'll need a flat plane to do it, into taking the moderator's challenge. Am I correct in this, John, that you were actually expected during the discussions and back and forth to be taking the moderator, that's MC Toon's challenge, so the fair and reasonable moderator and his challenge while he moderated you two? Is that correct? Sounds so neutral.
Yes, sir. Well, yes, sir. But then I turned it on its head and I just let the flat earther known as Ruhif show the evidence for the flat plane. And then I used his example to show how he proved it was a flat plane.
Yeah, but the point is I'm making, John, is that MC Toon was trying to stop you from talking under the guise that you were not in line with his challenge that you supposedly agreed to.
The moderator's challenge. The moderator, yes. The one there to keep things even. It wasn't reasonable that you weren't conforming to the moderator's challenge on this neutral platform.
Yeah.
This is epic. You dicks ever want to confront me about going on a neutral platform, I'll throw this in your face. You unbelievable idiots.
Which is not true either, because Ruhif used a flat Earth angle measurements and a flat Earth celestial sphere model to illustrate why it's a flat Earth. So I didn't need to do what they thought I needed to do. They did it for me. And I just pointed that out.
No, John, you're missing it.
He's not missing it. No. He hasn't missed what we've said, Brian, and I know you've picked it up and reiterated it enough for the audience to get it, and I thank you for that. But John is sort of sidebarring that. He's not agreeing with us. He's saying, but overall, back to the point I said earlier, when it's whether or not they're lying, you won the argument by pointing out that the flat earther known as Ruhif had done an admirable job of acquiring elevation angle measurements from a flat earth to find his fix. You told him what a great job he did of using a flat earth, didn't you, John? This is the main point, Brian. You will come back to that, I promise.
Yeah, and that's the point I really wanted. I don't think they picked up on that, or they may have at some level, but I don't think it was like cognitively registering for them. They thought that because I didn't do it myself, that it hadn't been done for me. It's just my opponent did it for me. And that's what I highlighted.
They just didn't get it.
Let me be a bit more clear. Ruhif accepted John's challenge that no one else would accept. And then John agreed to John agreed to do it, the debate, on MC Toon's. At which point, MC Toon and Ruhif completely changed the challenge around and told their audience and the whole world that would listen that John agreed to their challenge, which is not the truth. John never agreed to do any of that nonsense. It was John's challenge that Ruhif accepted, not John accepting McToon's challenge. That never happened. So when John went to speak after
Well,
Ruhif's
actually-
video was over,
I foreseen that, Brian, because we did discuss it prior, and I said, "Yeah, go ahead." I did. I was fine.
you
with
didn't
that.
agree. You didn't agree to their challenge, did you? You didn't agree
No,
to.
I did. Because I did, Brian, because Ruhif did it for me. I didn't have to do it.
Yeah, but if you agreed to their challenge, then you forfeited their challenge. That's the truth.
Right.
Regardless of how
I didn't.
correct you might be in what you're
hold
saying, if you agreed to do
No,
it,
I didn't.
No. Let me interrupt both of you, 'cause you're talking over each
Hang
other.
on.
Stop a
I have
second.
to get some
Brian,
straightforwardness.
please. What he's saying is, he didn't concede the challenge. He commended Ruhif on performing a flat Earth elevation angle measurement to do it. And that was good enough, wasn't it, John? That was good enough. He did it, and you're happy with what he did on a flat Earth, correct?
Right. And I maintained my original challenge where I would concede everything. And I did that. But he still required a flat plane to do it. And that's what I wanted to stick to. I didn't.
Yeah, but I need to get
what they were trying to do. I knew what they were trying to do, Brian. So I let them think that that's what they were getting away with. And
yeah, but John, did you agree to do Did you agree to do a fix using the angles they gave you? Did you agree to that?
I agreed that a flat earther would get a fix.
That's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking
No,
did you agree?
look, right, we're talking about...
Well,
We're talking
this is
about dealing with
important,
weasels, Brian. And John's trying to explain to you how he dealt with the weasels. And you're saying, no. Just let him tell you how he dealt with the weasels, please.
Right. The flat earther known as Ruhif, who doesn't believe it's a flat earth, done my job for me. And I just illustrated that. Now, they didn't want me to illustrate it. It drove them crazy, me pointing that out. That's why they didn't allow me to speak. But why would I need to do the challenge if he's already done it for me and proven a flat earth?
It's not whether you... I didn't ask you whether you needed to do it. I'm asking you whether you had agreed to do it. Because if you agreed and you didn't do it, even if you just reran what Ruhif did, just reran his video again, the point is that if you didn't do it and you agreed to do it, then they can call you a liar because you are being dishonest.
Correct. So the way that they angled it is that Brian needs to demonstrate doing the math after he's given the angles and use the math to come to a conclusion. He didn't do that at any point in time. Therefore, from their point of view, he forfeited.
Yeah, if you agreed to do that, John, I'm not getting a yes or no out of you whether you agreed to do the fix or not. You're telling me something.
I did not say that I was going to sit down and do the math. I said
you didn't agree to do the fix.
Brian, he's telling you what he did say, and you're interrupting him, so I can't hear what he did actually say. Just let him tell you.
Hold on, I'll dig it out because I knew this was coming up. I knew why they were doing it. And I knew that Ruhif was going to use a flat plane, so I specifically worded how I responded to them to put them back in line with the challenge that I put out.
Perfect. So you say you're going to look it up. It sounds like we're going to get a verbatim response that John gave, where he was claimed to be a liar, which I also picked up. Someone put down this earlier. Although I haven't watched this show, I've been filled in. I've had a précis, so to speak, of what occurred, which you've enjoyed along with me because you had most of it while we've been live, but I'm just basically buying time for John to dig out the response so that he can point out, no, I carefully phrased my response to you weasels who have taken me saying I'll concede anything you like and point out that you need flat earth elevation angle measurements and a celestial sphere. And if you attempt to twist it into something else, I'll respond and be just as weaselly back in my twisted response in your attempts to twist this into being the moderator's challenge on the neutral platform. Hopefully I've brought
Excellent job, John. That was crafty.
Hold on, he's not finished. Have you managed to dig it out, John?
No. Just while you're filling, just to add to that, we discussed it on Monday because the challenge link was sent to me and I pulled it up on screen and went through it. And as I said to John, my understanding was you're not going to do any of this because they're already going to do it for you when they acquire their angle, which is the bit they want to move past. So I'm confused that there was ever any expectation. It was quite categorically stated on here that wasn't happening on Monday. Do you know what I mean? Because we went through that, and he said, "No, I'm not doing that. That's not what I'm going for." So, and that'll be second.
This is the response. This is the response. I'll post it too, but this is the response I gave to Ruhif on June 29th at 11:35. He laid down the challenge, and I said, so we're going to use flat Earth angle measurements within the celestial sphere model of a flat Earth to prove a sphere, ? Do whatever, but I won't be wasting my time arguing past the point of concession. End quote.
So your response was, I won't be arguing past the point of concession. So once it's established, as detailed by John and done by the flat earther known as Ruhif, as detailed by John in his response. So when they called you a liar, outrageous. No, do whatever you like. And you did. 25-minute pre-recorded video. That's what you wanted to do. And then it was pointed out that you used a flat earth to do it.
Yeah, that was a concession.
Just let me get a response from... I know it's you that said it, John, but is that satisfactory, Brian?
Well, I still didn't get a straight... I asked that John agreed to do their challenge, and he didn't give me a straight yes or no. So if he gave me the impression he was going to do their challenge, I don't know.
There's no impression there. That was categorically clear, his response. He won't be arguing past the point of concession. Do whatever you want, but once we get to the point of concession, there's no point progressing past there, and the point of concession is where do you get your angle from, so.
Oh, but nobody's done it so far. Props, John. Your tolerance level is a lot higher than I have got for this sort of nonsense, because unless you're going to pay me to sit through a 25-minute Ruhif video, which I absolutely wouldn't do otherwise, you wouldn't have me there because of this kind of nonsense. Neutral platform with you supposed to be fulfilling the bloody moderator's challenge? This kind of nonsense isn't for me. No, thanks, lads. No, that's not neutral, you stupid idiots.
Well, they assume they have a trap.
My response. Right. I copied and pasted my response in Master B. If anybody wants to look at it, I'll try to take some. When I'm not using my phone to talk on Skype, I'll try to take some screenshots of what was actually said.
Okay, so I've got it up on screen. You've cut it and pasted it. I'll just repeat it verbatim. So we are going to use flat Earth angle measurement within the celestial sphere model of a flat Earth to prove a sphere, ? Do whatever, but I won't be wasting my time arguing past the point of concession. That doesn't sound like you saying you're going to fulfill McToon, the moderator's challenge. No, that sounds like you do whatever you need to do, individual one, not you and Toon, the moderator, and his challenge. This is to Ruhif, right? Please, God, be to Ruhif.
Yeah, yes, sir. That was
perfect. Yeah. So between you and the person you're supposed to be debating who actually presented a 25-minute video, because that's what he's gonna do, end quote, isn't you saying you're going to fulfill his, that's the moderator's, challenge in order to debate when you've said you'll concede whatever they like, as you did, and then point out that they'll need a flat Earth to do it, as you did. So you kept your end of the bargain and did precisely as you said you would. Kudos, as nobody said it so far. Good job. Well done.
Right, and it was kind of difficult to maintain that ambiguity because they were wanting to draw me into the false dichotomy of a flat Earth celestial sphere versus some other flat Earth model, and then a globe wins out. So it was hard because I knew what I was doing, I knew what they were trying to do, and I was just trying to maintain the fine line where they thought I was going to do that, but I never said I would.
Well, John. Is there a reply to that statement that Nathan just read that they sent you? Because if they said, yes, that's what we're going to do, then that means that they conceded that the celestial sphere model is based on a flat Earth in the first instance.
It seems unlikely, but
just proving that.
It seems unlikely, but did you get a reply saying, yeah, that's what we're going to do. We'll be using a flat Earth elevation angle measurement, because they will. And they did. And he was welcome to flat Earth, John. Probably not.
No, he ignored what I said. They only hear what they want to
Well, of
hear,
course.
and I played upon that.
Well, John, let me point out
I kind of feel
something.
bad
Let me
about it
point
a
out
little
something
bit.
which you missed because you left the debate before it happened. Is towards the end, they mentioned that premise of kind of like the horizontal plane through the center of the celestial sphere and all that. And they made it sound like they didn't understand it or have never heard of it. Like it's
And when
like
they
it's
started calling me a
not part
liar
of
and
celestial
questioning,
navigation.
when they broke down the ad homs, I just left because I was starting to get upset, and I didn't want to. I wasn't going to waste my time with people insulting me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
why
fair.
aren't
So let
they?
me enlighten you on
Why
things that
aren't
happened after you left.
why aren't
Okay, so
they?
they did
And it's
demonstrate.
it's
Never mind.
it's the same. My bad, but my bad if you weren't finished, bro. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that the thing that he said he was going to do in his note there that Nathan just read, they acted like that didn't exist. Okay, so that's a point that can be drawn in on because that clearly, from what 10th Man has read from the books, is part of it. Secondly, they did provide evidence of getting angles between curved lines, which I posted into the main chat here in Discord. How they did it is they picked 2 points on the curved lines, right? Then they created a vertex, and then they drew straight lines and got the angles from the straight lines. And that was them proving that you can get an angle from a curved line.
Are you talking about a chord? I didn't see this part. Through a circle?
No.
Well,
If somebody could pull up that
this
screenshot
is
from the debate.
Yeah, we'll have a look. We'll have a look at
interesting
that.
because
Sorry, Eli, just wait 1 second. We'll get a look at their No Atmo Day example in a moment. Before we do, though, quick couple of shout-outs. So, shout-out to, good name, Angle of Elevation. Thank you for the super chat. He says, at about the 2 hour, 8 minute of the debate, McToon admits that Ruhif's questions weren't his own, open brackets, inferring they were, in fact, his, close brackets. So John was disagreeing with a whole panel of anti-flat earther liars trying deceptively to save their religion. Thank you for the super chat. I don't know, maybe your assessment's correct, but I appreciate the support. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat Angle of Elevation. Also, Sasha, shout out to you, my friend, or Unitox Femu, as he's known in the chat. Thank you very much for the super chat. It says, only Nathan know that oceans doesn't curve, and we believe him. Only Nathan know that there is no rotation, and we believe him. Nathan. I think he's referring to the discussion with Gem Panda from yesterday, where apparently these are my disciples, and me asserting that oceans are flat means that it will be chanted back by my disciples. Yes, the oceans are flat, because Nathan doth decree. Thank you for the super chat, Unitox. Go ahead.
Nathan, when everyone's done, I'd
Eli.
like to...
Yes, once
Eli's
Eli's gone.
go.
Go ahead, Eli, and Adam after, but 10th man in between. Go ahead, Eli.
So we critique an argument, or we critique the heliocentrism, or we critique something that actually indirectly or directly contradicts the globe, and what we get in response is these anti-flat Earth positions that are only reinforced by more anti-flat Earth rhetoric. Do you guys get that? Because whenever we bring up some aspect that we have looked up, like you're talking about right now, how many times is 10th Man quoted Bowditch, or any of these other manuals, or any of these other videos with navigators that are trying to teach, like, the layman person on YouTube, all of these things we have brought up, and they've not once brought up any material from these people, or in any other argument, any actual material. Typically, they just run with some kind of anti-flat Earth position, like with the the 1 degree every 60 miles and from Polaris and blah 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 blah. But it's never actually any critique
Hold on a
of
second, just before we move on.
practical.
Before we move on, they say the 1 degree every 69 miles. Yeah, you'll need a flat Earth for that angle measurement.
So the bottom line is interesting to point out that we're always into the rhetoric and they're always out of the rhetoric. It's interesting.
Go ahead, Adam.
Nathan, is
Thank
it my
you.
turn or Adam?
Adam, then you.
Okay.
Eli said it nicely. That was one. I've not had a chance to see it yet, so I'll watch it this evening. But from what I'm hearing, this is exactly what I expected to happen. Would be, because this is McToon's challenge that nobody was interested in. That they've shuffled backwards to try, because they've put so much effort in, to this perfect trap, their sextant trap. And that's why they have to just go through it, because they are robots. And even though it's not denying, it's fingers and ears, they were going to go through, I think, whatever they went through. And it sounds to me like that's exactly what happened. And John just done exactly what he did from the start. I was involved, like I say, in the conversations. And they were desperately, if you look at Ruhif's responses to me, he's constantly trying to feedback. He's constantly trying to affirm the rules of the deal. Do you know what I mean? Sending me, oh, whoopee, it's agreed. And then, woohoo, look, he writes and lines out the McToon's challenge stuff. But that's why I was, like I said, on Monday, so that was not my understanding. And it's not something I'd confirmed to them either. Yeah, he'll be doing the challenge. Because there was no challenge to do. Because John, to me, from what I've heard, it's exactly how I'd have done it. Because there is no point going past the point of concession. And that's what they were desperate to from the very setup of their little clever trap they thought they'd made. It had to exclude where that angle was acquired from. It was just instantly in there. And that is what Eli's basically saying, though. They're just picking on little nuances, but they're not actually dealing with the stuff. They're just arguing over the meaning of a word almost. It's not surprising, but I look forward to listening to it, John. It sounds like you've...
Well, I think further to Eli's point, also he's saying in a heretical manner, they're not in line with the globe claim. They're making up their own assertions. And when they do, the example he gave required a flat plane. But 10th man, if you can just put yourself on mute, obstrused. You're causing a bit of feedback when you're not talking.
I wanted to point out to you, Nathan, that this is another example of what you said yesterday, where they are anti-globers.
Yeah, that's what I mean when I say in a heretical way.
That is heretical, because the obtainment of the elevation angle, it's quite clear how it's done. Yeah, how the fix is attained, it's quite clear how it's done. So they're having to be heretical to get past it, aren't they? The way they've done it is just to give that little bit of those numbers, just to not have to derive them, because as soon as they derive them, they are. Well, this is the interesting thing, isn't it? In celestial navigation, they are denying they're being heretics to celestial navigation, aren't they? Not necessarily to their ball, but to the methodology of celestial navigation, which isn't ours to defend. But that seems to be what they have to attack or misrepresent.
Absolutely. Their argument is with celestial navigation, if they don't like how it's performed, and it's performed utilising the prerequisite of a flat plane to perform it. Go ahead, 10th.
Okay, go to Master B. You can see I took screenshots of a back and forth with McToon and I on show 1694. I called it from the beginning. I knew what was going to happen. John knew what was going to happen. And we'll refer to his post at the end of these three screenshots. Do you see the first one?
Yes, replies.
Okay.
I'm very excited to host Ruhif and John Refracted Curvature tomorrow night on my channel. They will both be working through a celestial navigation example to get a location fixed, not according to what we just read. 10th man, feel free to read your own.
Well, no, and go to the next slide. Then I responded, process trap. The fix is in, pun intended, of course. But you need elevation angle in the first instance, 90 degrees. The argument is over the moment they say elevation angle. Next slide.
McToon responds, 10th man. John agreed to demonstrate by way of example how celestial navigation determines the location fix. I'm looking forward to the demonstration. That's an outright lie.
Well, what did I say? I see you're getting antsy already. We'll see how you get along tomorrow in the actual debate. And then I'll go to a copy of what John posted and read that.
John replied when asked about whether or not he'd be providing a location fix as claimed by way of a lie that MC Toon has decided to publish. John Sheldon responds to Ruhif when asked about precisely this. So, we're going to use flat Earth angle measurements within the celestial sphere model of a flat Earth to prove a sphere, ? Do whatever. But I won't be wasting my time arguing past the point of concession. That would be the acquisition of elevation angle measurements from a flat plane, McToon, not your claim that he's agreed to acquire a fix as your neutral moderator's challenge. Stupid idiot. With that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you. Smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a member, hit the thanks button after the fact, and all that good stuff. Once again, another massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. Stay tuned if you're watching on a premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!